The man looked at the huge skin, touched it, pulled out a hair, and told the king, "This is rat skin." The king said, "No, that's wrong." Another man used a magnifying glass, studied the skin, and said, "This is ant skin." But the king was disappointed again. The princess was relieved because if someone guessed right, she'd have to marry him. Then a gentleman came, and the princess hoped he'd fail. After observing, the gentleman guessed wrong, and the princess was very disappointed. Just then, a wild man came up, sniffed the skin, and said, "This is flea skin." The king was surprised the wild man guessed right. A few years ago, while the princess played music, a flea jumped from the king's hand. Watching it jump, the king was amused. So amused he couldn't focus on his daughter's performance. To study the flea, the king left and went to his study. He pricked his finger with a pen and watched the flea dilute the blood. After it was full, the king put it in a box. With the king's care, in days, the flea grew to thumb size. The king raised a flea the size of a thumb, having it pull a tiny cart daily, which delighted him. To speed its growth, he fed it pork chops with ox blood. Soon, it grew as big as a puppy. The king, finding it adorable, was pleased and patted its head daily, like his own son. Days went by. One day, the royal doctor was urgently called to the palace. Before he could ask, the king pulled him into the study. The doctor nervously asked what was wrong, but before he could gather his thoughts, he saw the giant flea. Urged by the king, he listened to the flea with a stethoscope, but before he could treat it, the flea had already died. It had eaten too much and was overfed to death by the king. Seeing the dead flea, the king held it and cried bitterly. After all, he had raised it from a young age. While grieving, he remembered asking the princess what kind of husband she wanted. She blushed, saying she wanted someone strong and handsome. Thinking of this, the king told her he had a plan to choose a consort. The next day, he skinned the flea and asked everyone to guess what animal the skin was from. Whoever guessed right could marry the princess. People felt the skin and pondered, some using magnifying glasses, but no one guessed. Suddenly, a barbarian swaggered in but was stopped by guards. To be fair, the king let him try. Unexpectedly, he sniffed it and said it was flea skin. The princess's heart sank, and she fled to the rooftop, intending to jump. The king urged her to consider the bigger picture, saying he must keep his word, and his children are no exception. Helplessly, she accepted her fate. Thus, under the barbarian's forceful pulling, she was taken from her childhood home. To keep his promise, the king had to marry his beloved princess to a wild man. The journey was long, so the wild man took her through dense forests and steep cliffs. After traveling through mountains and rivers, he brought the princess to his home. As soon as she entered, she was terrified by bones on the ground. The wild man dragged her inside. At lunch, he gave her raw meat. 2.5 years passed, and her fine clothes turned to rags. To survive, the wild man hunted by day and forced her into the room at night. One day, alone at home, she heard a noise on the cliff. She saw a strange woman and told her she was imprisoned. The woman promised to rescue her the next day. The princess began her plan. While the wild man was cutting meat, she slipped to the cliff's edge. The woman arrived as promised. Her family were acrobats, and she brought her son. The boy carried the princess on a tightrope to the other side. The wild man saw them and climbed the rope. As they rescued the princess, the boy cut the rope, and the wild man fell. With the danger over, they took the princess home, but the wild man, not dead, appeared and killed the father and brother. The younger brother took the mother and princess to escape, but they were caught and killed. Terrified, the princess ran for her life. She ran but was caught by the brute. As he was about to strike, she begged for mercy, promising to live with him. The wild man softened and let her go. As he was about to carry her, she slit his throat. The blood-soaked princess returned to the palace. Seeing her state, the king was filled with regret. To make amends, he passed the throne to her. Her bravery earned her the nation's esteem.